Good morning, Patriots. We are back with the Bald Brad Show. Today we have DEI fraud being exposed, Mamdani's radical moves, and Minnesota scandal reveals fault lines. All that and more here on today's podcast. If you haven't already, hit that like and subscribe button, folks. We're here each and every morning, 6 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. Well, today's story is one the mainstream media hoped would die quietly in a footnote somewhere deep inside a government PDF file, very similar to what Kash Patel found in those bags in a storage room deep within the FBI, because it exposes one of the largest taxpayer fraud schemes in modern political history. We're talking about DEI, folks. The D, the E, and the I. Not the harmless corporate seminar, not the rainbow Zoom avatar that people always love to post, huh? Those weirdos. No, we're talking about a multi-billion with a B dollar federal contracting loophole. And they disguised it as equity. Do you notice that word gets thrown around a lot? Equity, equality, they interlude the two. It was weaponized under the Biden administration and now unraveling right in front of the United States Senate. It is all centering around a program, and by the way, yes, good morning to all of you as well, that most of you, including myself, have never heard of until really, for me, 24 hours ago when I was doing show prep. It's SBA 8A program. This wasn't just bureaucratic incompetence, and it wasn't even negligence. This was really Washington designing a system where fraud wasn't a bug. It was used as like a business model. And today, the Senate finally started digging into this whole thing. The 8A program was born decades ago with the idea to help businesses run by the truly disadvantaged get opportunities they otherwise wouldn't, which is typical for every initiative on the cover of it that was created by Democrats. It all sounds nice, but then when you start doing some digging, you see there's some real fraud behind this whole thing. But under Biden, that program mutated into a mandate. Oh, did it really? Federal agencies were told, quote, hit 15% minority and women contractor quotas or else, end quote. Meaning, this would be billions of contracts awarded primarily based on people's race and gender, with minimal auditing and almost no verification and zero accountability. Doesn't this sound like almost every single initiative that the Biden administration and these Democrats, the progressives, pushed for 4 years straight and are still trying to push, quite frankly? If you could check the right identity box under the Biden administration, Washington treated you like you were the golden ticket, man. They'll do anything you wanted. And as you can imagine, people exploited it immediately. So how did the fraud actually work? Well, a lot of this information came from the Daily Wire because they're the ones that helped do kind of the investigative bulwark of all this. They were like the getting the hands on. And they uncovered a case after they uncovered case after case after case when they're kind of doing digging. A minority-owned business won a lucrative government contract. They did none, and they specified that they did absolutely zero of the actual work. They outsourced it to non-minority companies, and then they pocketed a massive cut for doing literally nothing. So instead of helping disadvantaged business owners, Program 8A became a shell game. And the way that they did this was they treat it as a system of pass-through companies acting as middlemen so Washington could brag about these DEI numbers. Have you all noticed that there's a lot of fraud that seems to be coming up lately? I mean, we did almost a 45-minute show just on one news story about the fraud that was happening. What was it, over there in Minneapolis, I think, or Minnesota, one or the other, where they were saying they were feeding thousands of children a week. And it turns out they weren't feeding any children. And then we found out that they're also stealing money from autistic kids. And I made the point, when the money runs dry from all of your wallets, because you're paying for illegal immigrants, you're paying for somebody else's, programming in Iraq or wherever it's at around the globe. You're paying for all these other families. Before, we used to get commercials with it, at least. Before, it was 30 cents a day, 10 cents a day. You could feed a village of 30. Well, now they just steal it from your wallet and say, hey, you know what? We're going to do it anyways. Well, now once you don't have any money, well, guess what? They're going to start taking it from the kids. That's how sadistic these people are, man. They don't care. But then they're going to preach morality upon all of us. Like they're holier than thou. Yeah, we're the immoral. It's like, bro, your party is stealing money from kids. You're saying you're feeding them and you're not. And then you have the balls to go take it from the autistic kids. Yeah, don't lecture me about morality, man. And then you also want all these illegals to roam free on the street, like you saw with Minnesota over there with Tim Walz, Chicago, J.B. Pritzker, letting all these illegals, almost 1,800 of them, convicted criminals, by the way, not just, might be criminal, innocent until proven guilty. No, convicted, and allows them in the streets. Don't talk to me about morality. And now we got this bad boy coming out with more fraud taking place under the Biden administration. Go figure. So they were cheating, is what they were doing. And it wasn't like there was a few bad apples in this whole thing. They were calling it structural fraud, is the phrase going around. And when Senate investigators asked just how widespread this whole scheme was, they put it plainly and said, quote, 8A creates a random group of influence peddlers who, like lobbyists, get rich by selling their access to government insiders while driving up costs for all of us. Now, if you were to translate that, DEI turned into a legalized money laundering pipeline, and taxpayers are the suckers funding it. Yeah, we're always the suckers. We always get, do you notice that we're the ones that always get screwed? Nobody else ever does. It's always us, the taxpayers. They're the average Joe Americans. Under Biden, as you already know, DEI was like almost religious. It wasn't a philosophy. And when things are religious in the government, it's really a federal directive. Agencies weren't judged by efficiency. They never are. They weren't judged by performance. They never are. Well, how do we know? Because they weren't even showing up to work. That's how we know. What kind of efficiency and performance are you performing if you're not even going to work? You're just claiming you are. We all saw that one. What they were really judged on and by was identity metrics. And this did three things. It created perverse incentives, it punished honest contractors, and it created an entire ecosystem of DEI consultants, these credentialed peddlers, and fake business fronts. And I promise you, looking at this scheme, this massive fraud that was taking place, you could see some overlaps definitely in a lot of other crap that the Biden administration was pushing. And not just the Biden administration, state level too. There is definitely some connections to be made here. Why is this scandal so much bigger than they want to admit? The numbers they don't want to say out loud, man. And you're talking billions of dollars. The government themselves won't give a precise number, and it's not totally their fault. They really can't. Because nobody knows really how much money was wasted. But based on the federal contracting volume, and if you look at the watchdog reports or you look at the inspector general stuff, their audits, we're not talking millions, man. And please know, we're not even talking hundreds of millions. We're talking several $billion over 4 years. To put that in comparison, folks, this dwarfs most government fraud cases. The irony? I always love irony. You know me. You know. The same people who scream systematic injustice built a system that actually harmed legitimate small businesses, disadvantaged applicants, and the taxpayer. And the wild thing was, they did it all in the name of equity. Oh, the lecturing that we always get. They're projectionists. That's what they are. If you hear Democrats spewing anything, you're the racist, odds are they're actually the racist. If they say you're immoral, odds are they're the immoral ones. That's why I don't get offended when Democrats say anything about me. I'm like, all right. I just know that you're calling yourself that because I know who I am. You know, they can call me whatever they want. Name call me. I played hockey for like over 20 years. I've been called like every name in the book, whether it's by fans or by the opponent or the opponents. It don't matter. I've been called everything on the ice. You ain't gonna say anything that's gonna upset me. Come on. During Wednesday's hearing, the senators finally heard what had been happening behind the curtain. The person that did most of the bulldog type of investigative reporting said this. This is the kind of thing people hate about Washington. And the person's right. I mean, really, nothing represents a swamp more than identity quotas, zero accountability, backdoor accounting and contracting, middlemen getting rich, bureaucrats pretending nothing's wrong, treating us like we're idiots. I know. We're used to it now. It's almost numb. You know what I mean? But there is another angle here. And in my opinion, not really one that's getting much attention. Where 8A, the fraud didn't just waste money. What happened with it was it kind of distorted entire industries. Because when billions of contracts are diverted to identity-based shell companies or real businesses, well, you lose opportunities with that. It was really anti-merit, anti-competition, and anti-small business. And that's a massive problem because when you do that for 4 years, people adapt. People make changes in their business. All over something that's complete bogus and horse doo-doo. On the same day that the Senate grilled these DEI scammers, the Federal Reserve did cut interest rates to 3.5% to 3.75% range, which is nice because that's the lowest it's been in roughly 3 years. But you got to ask, why did they do this in the first place, though? Why are they cutting interest rates? Well, affordability. And that's what we talked about yesterday. And I promise you guys, I try my best to see where things are going. And that's why I try to cater certain stories that will keep you ahead of the news cycle. Very similar, kind of like what Dan Bongino did. And I think I do a pretty good job of that, of leading you into what's the conversation that's going on. Sometimes I miss it, but affordability, if you haven't caught on already, is what's going on around the country. They cut interest rates because the labor market is weakening. Hiring has slowed. Wage growth is flat. And business investments is pausing. They are attributing this, though, to mostly artificial intelligence, that's what the stagnation's coming from. And there might be some truth to that. But what this is really saying, according to the Federal Reserve here, is the economy is cooling and the Fed is panicking right now. Here's why this ties directly, in my opinion, to the DEI fraud story. In a slowing economy, waste does become fatal. I mean, that will mess you up. That will slap you like a sheep. You know what? I can't say it because we're on YouTube. When growth is strong, Washington is able to hide billions and billions in bad programs. But the issue is not when things are good. It's when things are slow or things are bad. That's where things really get exposed and every dollar really hurts you. And it's almost exponential. And DEI wasn't just waste, it was inflammatory waste, man. Fraudulent contracts inflate costs for infrastructure, defense, technology, energy, and supply chains, which is a high-cost environment. And what that does is it makes inflation worse. So you have the feds over here, the Federal Reserve, cutting rates, while the Senate is over here investigating fraud. And the brutal truth of it all is Washington spent years mismanaging money. And now one of the variables, not the only one, but one of them, is the economy's paying for it. And who's getting the blame for it, though? Donald Trump, which is why the other day we did a whole podcast talking about how Donald Trump's going to be going on his tour to get the word out that things are better. The feeling that you're experiencing is there, but it's not necessarily due to the things that Donald Trump has done, that it's due to what Joe Biden has done, and we're seeing the long-term effects of it. There's no shock that a lot of times things aren't really there in the short term. The effects produce in the long term. Why is this the biggest DEI reckoning yet, though? Some would say this is the beginning of a national reassessment of DEI as a governing philosophy. This sucker runs deep, man. If you ever want to read Vivek Ramaswamy's book, he talks all about DEI, ESG scores, and how the DEI is entwined with that into these mega corporations that are public entities, where you have State Street, BlackRock, and Vanguard making up majority of the decisions that are being made, sometimes at the detriment of said company. But then you have your portfolio, your retirement in BlackRock, in State Street, and Vanguard. And when you want to invest in companies that are sharing your same philosophy, well, some of these companies are saying they're sharing your philosophy, but because you have investments in State Street, Vanguard, BlackRock that are handling some of your investments or putting those investments into other investments, it actually goes against your philosophy. This stuff runs deep, man. I don't think people realize it's nuts. I think philosophy, me calling it that, is a very PG-13 way. I think they treat it as a religion, in my opinion. The following three things are truly undeniable, and I think many of you in the chat would agree with me, or those listening. DEI created corruption. When you tie money to identity, fraud becomes inevitable. DEI failed the people it claimed to help, where legitimate minority-owned businesses were overshadowed by these fraudsters. And lastly, DEI damaged public trust. We're never mad really about diversity. I mean, we go with diversity of thought here in the conservative side of things. But most people were mad about the corruption wrapped in this whole moral language thing. I mean, this is the same DEI ideology that infiltrated universities, HR departments, government agencies, corporations, public schools, the entertainment industry, heck, everywhere. And now the Senate is finally calling it for what it is: a political machine built on money and metrics, not outcomes or fairness. But to be fair, that is every single government agency out there practically. So it didn't do what it was supposed to do. People didn't do what they were supposed to do. Money went every which direction. And at the end of the day, guess who gets screwed? All of us. And if you think that money's coming back, oh boy, it ain't coming back. No, no, no. We got a couple news stories up next for all of you folks, but if you haven't already, please hit that thumbs up button. It does help support the show. Look, I do this all by myself. We do have great moderators in the chat though, so always appreciate them. But outside of that, this is all me, man. And I'm running the switchboard myself, the keyboard, the monitors, the chat, the systems, making sure everything's working. It is a lot. So if that's something that you appreciate and you think we deserve a thumbs up and you want to help and contribute that way, it's absolutely free. Just that thumbs up button. Greatly appreciate everybody that supports the show. We do this each and every morning, baby. 6 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. Some people, we got new subscribers. Some people have asked me, why don't you do the show later? You'd get more people watching. I work full time. This is a hobby. We do this for, it's funny. I wake up at like 4:35 a.m. to do something that I do for fun. Yeah. And I'll tell you, And by the way, I appreciate all your donations. Don't take this as a negative thing. We don't make enough here on the show for it to be worth it if I wasn't having fun doing this. Let's put it that way. Okay. I am not a morning person. I'm a night owl. All right, here we go. I know some of you laughed at that. Thank you. I appreciate you laughing. I don't know why I did a cuckoo, because that's not exactly what owls sound like. They go, whoo. It's morning. I told you I'm not a morning person. All righty. Well, Mamdani's back in the news. He's going to be in the news for quite some time, you guys. New York City hasn't even sworn in this dude yet. And already the city is getting a preview of what critics are saying is about to be the most extreme left-wing administration in modern American history. Yes, we're talking about Zohran Mamdani, a self-described democratic socialist. You could just disregard the democratic part of it. It's just a fancy way for them to circumvent the system and make it seem like on paper that they're not socialists or full-blown socialists, but yet they want to be full-blown socialists, so they have to just say that they're democratic socialists. It's very confusing. They're socialists. A darling of the far-left activist class. And then he's also a man who won the mayor's office running on slogans like liberation, equity. Oh boy, I've been waiting. I put that in there and I was like, I know they're going to make the connection to the first story. We just got done talking about DEI and equity, folks, and how that was used for massive fraud. This dude, slogans were liberation, equity, and reimagining public safety. Why do you have to do any of these things? I just want to point out that Democrats have been running New York City. So you're telling me Democratic policies weren't working before, but now you vote for another Democrat and expect Democratic policies to work now. Gotcha. No, that makes sense to all of us, doesn't it? New Yorkers are already getting the reimagining part, and they're not totally thrilled about it. I was so excited to share this with you guys today. Just know that this is a story that I was really amped up for, because this is exactly why I wanted this guy in office. Because I want to see people have to eat their stupid decisions. Before Zohran even put his hand on the Bible, he's issuing political messages that look less like mayor prepping to govern and more like, some would say, like an activist preparing for a street demonstration. And yes, even law enforcement is sounding the alarm. There's this video, I guess, that's going around. And just days ago, Mamdani released what would be the most eyebrow-raising mayor-elect video in recent memory. And the video itself was a direct message to immigrants. Now, if you know anything about how the Democrat Party uses that term, he's not just talking to legal immigrants. He was including in that message illegal immigrants, because the Democrats, they're not able to parse out that there's two different things. Even if they were, they don't think that's even a thing in the world. In their mind, you can't be illegal. What does that mean? Even though every other country does it. And what he said was, check this out, I have an exact quote, telling them that they have a right to, quote, stand up to ICE, end quote. That is you're putting not just ICE in danger, meaning federal officers, but you are putting those people in danger because they're going to go out and do some stupid stuff now. Oh, we got a new member. Thank you, Sue. Shout out to you over there. Oh, Pat gifted a bunch of people. Pat, shout out to Pat. Appreciate that. So, yeah, we have a few new members. So shout out to Sue for the membership. Thanks, Pat, for giving Sue the Bald Brad Show Army. Hey, we got a new friend now. Awesome. Well, welcome. It's one thing to explain somebody's constitutional rights. Like, I totally get that. But this wasn't one of those know your rights moments. This was a political agitation, and everybody knows it. And we've spoken how the Democrat Party, in my opinion, has weaponized free speech to pull stuff like this. Oh, well, he didn't say go out and attack ICE. He didn't say those things. No, he said stand up to ICE. That's different. We know what they're implying. They do this stuff all the time. They do it with Charlie Kirk on what they said about him. So now instead of, saying to delete you, we'll say, oh, you deserve one in the neck. And then when you call the cops on, I was just talking about that he deserves a nice little kiss on the neck. I didn't say that he should be deleted. That's crazy. I would never say something like that. Then they act stupid, right? Even though we know what they're talking about. So that's how they're weaponizing this stuff. It's all like code language, you know what I mean? Because to illegal immigrants, what this means to them is if ICE shows up to resist, and the message criminals heard was the New York City mayor is on your side and not law enforcement's. Remember, New York City has already had and does still have a sanctuary policy that forbids local law enforcement from cooperating with ICE in most cases, including many involving criminal aliens. So Mamdani didn't just double down here, man. He poured gasoline on the fire that some would say is already burning out of control over there. Critics, including former ICE officials, are saying this video could encourage criminal illegal aliens to hide, gang members to resist arrest, violent offenders to treat ICE as political enemies rather than law enforcement agencies. This is what happens, man, when you elect activists into office. It ain't good. And it's only going to get worse. I can't believe people would want to be a police officer in New York City under Mamdani. I would get the heck out of there. Because he ain't going to support you. And that's the worst, when the mayor doesn't support you and he tells you to stand down or do all these crazy things when your job is legitimately to protect and serve. It's on the side of a lot of squad cars. Protect and serve. But he's also assembling a team that is pretty radical. So let's talk about the team that he's assembling. Because when you look at who Mamdani is bringing to City Hall, you start to kind of understand exactly what his administration is going to be. You have, and forgive me for mispronouncing some of these names. Hello, Renee Harrington Painter. Hello, how are you? I was told to say hello. I'm sorry if I missed you. But hello, how are you? It's good to see you. Renee, appreciate you being here in the chat. Thank you. I apologize for missing something if I did. I'm trying to pay attention to my show notes. I'm trying to give you guys content and quality. But shout out to everybody in the chat. You guys know I love you. Okay, so the first person that Mamdani has here is Miss Sohn Lennon, who is... you guys, I promise you this is real. I'm not making what I'm about to say up. It almost seems like I'm going to be, but I'm not. This person is a rapper convicted in 1999 of 2 armed robberies, held a taxi driver at gunpoint, and served 7 years in prison. But today he's no longer holding up taxi cabs, don't worry. He's holding a high-level position on the new mayor's Committee on the Criminal Legal System. Hey, what's going on, Zoomy? Good to see you here. I'm new. See, look at that. I love that. Heck yeah. A bunch of shout outs to all these new patrons in the chat. Heck yeah. What's up, Zoomy? I mean, the irony, right? You guys know I love that. The guy's a rapper convicted of armed robberies, 2 of them, held taxi drivers at gunpoint, served time in prison, but now he's in a high-level position for the Committee on Criminal Legal System. You couldn't write this. You couldn't make it up if you wanted to. Zohran Mamdani just tapped an armed robber to help reshape New York City's criminal justice policies. But wait, it gets even better. I told you I was giddy about this whole story. Lennon is closely tied to Until Freedom is what it's called. That's the title of this group, Until Freedom. It's a radical activist organization that he co-founded with none other than Linda Sarsour, who is one of the most polarizing pro-Palestinian activists in the country. Sarsour, by the way, has already been advising Mamdani for quite some time. You got two psychos in with this dude. So New York City isn't just getting progressive advisors, man. It's getting Black Lives Matter activists, cop haters, anti-Israel agitators, and as you just heard, formerly incarcerated armed robbers writing policy. And as you could imagine, dude, law enforcement is not taking this well nor quietly. So law enforcement is moving towards like an open revolt here, as you could imagine, because Correction Officers Union President Benny Boscio called Mamdani's appointment choices, quote, disheartening and deeply disturbing, end quote. Yeah. You mean that the guys that you locked up and threw in the brig are now going to be making decisions? Retired NYPD leaders like John Chell warned that Mamdani is filling his team with black nationalist activists like Lumumba Bandeli, defund the police scholar Alex Vitali, and other well-known anti-cop ideologues. When you elevate activists who built careers demonizing law enforcement, you kind of send a message to criminals, to police, to prosecutors, and the entire justice system that the old rules are gone. Get ready for something new. And what kind of new are they referring to? Well, the last time a major city embraced this level of activist governance, it was Minneapolis after George Floyd. And what was the results of all this? Well, we lived through it. Violent crime skyrocketed. Police resignations hit record highs. The city literally had to spend millions of dollars hiring police from other states. So it caused other states to be less safe. Oh, that's fun. But remember, it's never impacting other states, you guys. Yeah, it always does. In New York City, already struggling with a major decline in public safety, is about to try the same thing, but on a much bigger scale. And yes, that is the definition of insanity. But they voted for it. And this is what we're all here. And I know some of you are listening on audio, so I'll describe what I'm doing. I am leaning back in my chair and I'm putting my hands behind my back, behind my head back. You know what I'm talking about. And I'm relaxing and I'm just going to watch. If I had a box full of popcorn or a bag full of popcorn here, I'd be eating it as well. And this is what we're going to do for the next 4 years. Is we're going to watch Mamdani destroy New York City. Mamdani is not building a governing coalition. Bro is building an ideological coalition. And I worded this so we can connect this all to the prior story. And that's why I'm using very specific words. It's not to manipulate you, but it's to see that there is overlap in all this fraud that's taking place in Chicago with Pritzker, or over here in said state in Minnesota with Tim Walz, where they implement all this ideology and the ideology leads to fraud because it's not a philosophy, it's a religion to these people. There's a reason why I use the word equity and he uses it in his slogans, and he is Mamdani. You're going to see fraud. You're going to see chaos. You're going to see disruptions in New York that you haven't ever seen before. Maybe for those that have been around long enough, maybe Giuliani. Giuliani cleaned up New York. And then you get Democrats that just come in and destroy it again. Somebody cleans it up, which is usually a Republican or independent or somebody. Then the Democrats come in and destroy it again. And it's just a cycle. That's all it is. It's not. It's funny because people are like, oh, he'll be competent. He'll be a good mayor. No, they weren't chosen for administrative competence. The guy's never done anything in his life. These people weren't chosen for, getting the book straight or making good decisions, blah, blah, blah. No, they haven't done. Clearly, they're not being elected to make good decisions because the guy that was put in to make the good decisions already made bad decisions by putting in freaking prior convicted criminals to run their system, their criminal justice system. I mean, I guess, hey, you know what? Sometimes we say that you need people that have done the job before. You need people that have experience in the criminal justice system. What better way than to find somebody that's actually had criminality in their life? Some would say that's, autocracy. These people are chosen for activism credentials. That's why they're chosen. Because Mamdani enters the worldview in entirely an activist-driven ideology, viewpoint, however you want to phrase it. He's been mentored, Mamdani, by the socialist wing of the Democratic Party. Mamdani's also tied to groups that want to, quote, cut police budgets, abolish ICE, end incarceration as we know it, replace criminal justice with restorative alternatives, which, by the way, the restorative justice that they implemented in the education system has completely destroyed those schools, just a heads up. And you're going to see that on a mass scale with this criminal justice. And turn the mayor's office into a platform for national left-wing activism. New Yorkers didn't just vote for a mayor. No. They voted for the beginning of a political experiment, and the early signs say that the experiment is going to get messy. And that's why we wanted the guy elected, did we not? Yes, we did. And now we get to sit back and watch and roast our marshmallows above the fire. Get a little warm because New York's on fire. You know what I mean? Put your hands up. You can feel the heat, huh? I'm not asking for New York to fall. That's not what I'm asking. I just think it's going to happen. And I hope I'm wrong. The only way that it doesn't is because the Democrat Party has to keep this guy in line for the midterms and then the 2028 election. So please keep that in mind. And we did a story on that if he's going to be maneuvering, that he's going to be kind of stopped at some point from doing something super psychotic because the Democrat Party needs to wrangle him in, or else it's just going to be a bunch of clips of this guy doing and saying crazy things that Donald Trump's going to utilize as ammo for the midterms when he's doing his tour and supporting different people around the country, but also then whoever's going to be running in 2028. So that's why I don't think he's going to be able to go full-blown socialist here, but he'll try. Or he will. Heck, I don't know. I mean, look at the new frontrunners of the Democrat Party. You had Jasmine Crockett putting in her paperwork to file for the office of the Senate. That's a lady that said, you ain't no criminal just because you did criminal behavior. What? No, she said that. Can we go to it again, please? I'm sorry. We watched it yesterday, but I'm not sorry. I want to watch it again because it's freaking hilarious. Let me pull up that clip for you. And we haven't got to watch something in quite some time. I have a new clip of her as well that I need to show that correlates to kind of Jasmine Crockett. I brought her up for a reason. So I'm going to show you two clips here. The one we've already seen. Oh, where's this gem? Oh, here it is.
What was kind of, I understood what was kind of pushing them there. And so I do want people to know that just because someone has committed a crime, it doesn't make them a criminal. That is completely different. Being a criminal is more so about your mindset. Committing a crime can come for a lot of different reasons. I understood.
Isn't that crazy? I mean, you heard it from the horse's mouth, did you not? That's the real deal, bro. The other one I want to show you here just came out recently. And because we're speaking about fraud,
I do want to make sure.
And here she is. Jasmine Crockett says to not worry so much about fraud because there's always going to be some.
And I do want to make sure that I cover one other thing that the chairman spoke about. He specifically said that he's concerned about the fraud. He's not giving us numbers, but I can give you some numbers. If we're concerned about how much money it may be costing us because systems are not perfect, we have no perfect systems. We have always had some level of fraud in anything that we have because there's no such thing as perfection walking on this earth. And
what an intellectual. What a specimen. We have no perfect systems. We always have some fraud. No such thing as perfection. Well, I mean, shouldn't we strive for it? You know what I mean? Yeah, I know. I saw the purple haired dyed lady next to her. Yeah, I saw that too. Yeah, they're all, you can spot them out from a mile away. You know what I mean? And the same people that don't want you looking at them right or judging them or, commenting on their appearance always have to look like the most odd people. Do you notice that? Interesting. Might be asking, well, what does this all matter then, Brad? Like, who cares? Let California burn or whatever your thoughts are on it. Because the far left has a problem. They know how to protest. They know how to chant. I guess they know how to write op-eds. But what they've never actually been able to do well is govern a major American city without destroying it in the process. It's never happened. In the same way, socialism has never worked. You will not find it. It's been tried over 100 times in 100 years, has never worked, but they will keep pushing it. They will keep trying. If you look at their record, the progressive DA experiment was a total disaster. The reimagining policy movement, violent crime exploded. The Chaz Autonomous Zone in Seattle that we talk about in my book, Trojan Horse, How the Left is Destroying America, well, that collapsed in weeks. You had San Francisco's progressive takeover, where businesses fled, crime soared, and the city is collapsing as well. And New York City is the largest stage yet to try this. And Mamdani's already shown his hand, man. It ain't looking good. What's the difference between what Mamdani's saying and what Mamdani is actually doing? Because when challenged, Mamdani says that he simply wants to, quote, a broad array of experiences and analysis, end quote. That's what he wants. The translation to that is, I want ideologies, activists, and radicals because those are my people. Nobody buys the whole diversity of experience line. Not when it comes to the left, because they don't believe in that. This is a political coalition being installed under the cover of euphemisms. And that's what the left does. Michael Knowles wrote an entire book on it. And New Yorkers should be very, very concerned, but they're not. They voted for it. And the question isn't, will crime get worse? The question will be, how fast is it going to be? And will we be here to monitor it? You're damn right we will. If you zoom out, before taking office, the guy hasn't even been sworn in yet. Mamdani has already encouraged immigrants to resist ICE, elevated armed robberies to justice policy roles, empowered Black Lives Matter activists and anti-police organizers, brought in anti-Israel agitators, filled his transition team with people who openly despise law enforcement, and signaled that criminal justice reform is going to be run by, get it, wait for it, pause, let it sizzle, criminals. I mean, this is not a mistake, you guys. It's not a fluke. This was all intentional. New Yorkers elected a revolutionary, not a mayor. And revolutionists always start the same way. They tear down institutions, they elevate activists, they politicize law enforcement, and then they blame everyone else for the chaos that ultimately ensued and erupted. What happens next? It's simple, folks. Oh, it's really simple. We're going to sit back and watch, because this isn't just a New York story. No. This is the future the activist left wants in every major city. And we'll be having our popcorn while we watch it. Oh, absolutely we will. And it's going to be awesome, as long as it doesn't happen in my area. Granted, I'm in California, so I have definitely parts of this, but I'm in the good part of California. I'm in MAGA country, so I don't really have to worry about this. See, when people get arrested here, they actually go to jail. Yeah, it's not LA County. Yeah, we don't work that way over here. Yeah, we put you in the brig. You don't just get out and get to roam free and start harassing other people. Well, before we get to our next story, folks, again, if you hit that like button, it's always greatly appreciated. If you don't want to, you don't have to. It's just there for you. But also, tis the season. It's Christmas time, man. And, well, sometimes you're wondering what to get somebody or a loved one. And what do you give them when they already have everything? You already spoil them. Well, you give them the sound of a perfect sear. Head to mychicagosteak.com/rumble, code rumble. mychicagosteak.com/rumble, use code rumble, because the Chicago Steak Company, they have this top 2% of beef in America, USDA prime and premium Angus, hand cut by master butchers. The kind of marbling that hits a hot pan and fills the whole house. And y'all know that smell, man. I like my mouth. I'm starting to drool. My mouth is just thinking about that smell of a nice steak with a little bit of crack of salt and pepper on it. That buttery meat goodness. You guys know what I'm talking about. The good stuff. Spend $229 on a holiday order, and your gift arrives at your loved one's door with 6 free petite ribeyes, plus free shipping, by the way. That's $240 in premium steak absolutely for free. This is a deal that they're offering people over at Rumble. Then there's the whole unboxing thing. I mean, it's practically a magical event. You get a black and gold gift box worth unwrapping, and it's going to be packed with dry ice. Smoke is going to be freaking rolling out of this bad boy. The kids are going to go crazy, go, what is that? And you're going to look like David Copperfield, open up something amazing. You're going to pull out all this steak, all this Christmas greatness on Christmas morning. And it's going to bring an energy in the atmosphere in the room that you've never seen before. It's not just another sweater, folks. It's a dinner that becomes a memory. mychicagosteak.com/rumble, code RUMBLE, RUMBLE. Go over there, folks. Nobody's going to be disappointed with steak other than a leftist vegetarian. So they're going to say, well, I'm not going to eat steak. That's okay. I just bought $229 worth of steak. I'll eat your portion. I'll eat triple the amount of steak that you do. I love steak. I love meat. Is anybody craving meat now? Because I know I am. Also, we have new people here watching the show. If you're unfamiliar, we have a book. I might as well plug my own stuff here. Trojan Horse, How the Left is Destroying America. If you head over to baldbrad.com, again, that's baldbrad.com. Matter of fact, I'll just put it in the chat for all of you. You can get this on Amazon, Barnes & Noble. It's in some Walmarts. We are around. People are like, how have I never heard of this guy before? Well, people don't like the truth to get out to people. All righty. Well, there you have it. There's some Somali fraud scandal. And there's some updates here on what Minnesota actually knew and what they ignored. So it's good to see everybody in the chat, by the way. There are elements of this that you already know. And this is all regarding the Minnesota Somali fraud scandal. And this sucker was hundreds of millions of dollars, potentially billions, by the way, potentially billions of taxpayer dollars that were siphoned out of the federal program, laundered through shell nonprofits, wired overseas, and in some cases, allegedly ending up in the hands of terrorist organizations like Al-Shabaab. I'm covering this because, again, you're seeing 3 Venn diagram circles all intertwining one another, starting off with a massive fraud case that the Senate is currently hearing regarding your DEI programs that we just exposed with the help of the Daily Wire and other investigative journalism that's taking place regarding that. And then we covered the New York Mamdani mayor-elect who wants to put forth equity, which overlapped to that first story, with the use of ideology and philosophy, which connected to that fraud of the first story. And now we're connecting both of those with the Tim Walz story here of what's going on with the Somali fraud scandal with the updates. If you missed what I said earlier, you're having American tax dollars in Minnesota going from fraud networks to these Somalis to these terrorist organizations of Al-Shabaab. And the political machine protecting all of this, it traces directly back to the dude that was almost vice president, Governor Tim Walz, his attorney general, Keith Ellison, and yes, Congresswoman Ilhan Omar. Oh, one of the squad. One of the squad that is also with AOC, that's also with Bernie Sanders, that's also with Zohran Mamdani, the same AOC that campaigned with Zohran Mamdani, the same guy that was running for vice president with Kamala Harris. Weird. It's like there's almost an entire fraud ring going here, an entire political class that's completely corrupt. Hopefully now you're starting to see the weaving of the story and the narrative that's being pushed here on the show, that, there's a lot of fraud and a lot of corruption taking place. Now, I know I don't need to tell you all that. You are all fully aware of what's going on there. And this ain't speculation. This ain't no rumor stuff. This is coming straight from the House Majority Whip, Congressman Tommy Emer, backed by indictments. We're talking DOJ filings here, Treasury investigations. years of whistleblower warnings. I mean, this stuff is all out there in the open. It's not Brad's opinion. It's not, oh, well, you're just a right-wing extremist. No, this stuff is just out there. There's no opinion to be given, bro. There was fraud taking place to the tune of millions. Some are now saying potentially billions. And the craziest thing is state officials had the power to stop all of it, but they didn't. They chose not to, is the thing. They were warned so many times it's head spinning, just like Joey was. And sometimes it's the easiest answer, folks. They just didn't want to stop it. They enjoyed it. Let's start with the scale of this whole thing. And I want to remind you, because this really is wild. And I'm not going to drop it. No, I'm not. I know some of you heard this before. I ain't going to drop it. Federal prosecutors have already charged dozens of individuals connected to this criminal network with more than 55 convictions so far across multiple schemes. To repeat this, and I talked about at the beginning of today's show, $240 million were stolen from the federal Feeding Our Future program. $240 million. I'm going to break that down a little bit. That's feeding children, folks. And they stole $240 million from it. They didn't feed any children. That's how sadistic these people are. There was $104 million ripped out of housing assistance. This one just gets a little bit more sadistic. $14 million in fraudulent autism services. So not only did they claim that they were feeding children, which they weren't, so they stole $240 million of that, but then they said, hey, we're going to help autistic kids, which they didn't do whatsoever. So they stole $14 million from autistic kids. As I mentioned, when your money dries up, folks, they're not going to steal it from you anymore. They're just going to steal it from your kids. And they're going to do it in the most sadistic way of, hey, you're hungry, little buddy? Oh, too bad, sucker. I'm going to take your money. You ain't getting no meal. and what are they going to do with that money? They're going to send it to terrorists. I'm laughing because it's so preposterous. It almost seems like I am BSing all of you, and I'm not. This is real stuff. This is real. This is really happening. Also, Medicaid, childcare subsidies, and SBA loans, they were all hit as well. And please note, we're not talking about a few bad actors. We're talking about one of the largest coordinated fraud operations in U.S. history. And it was centered overwhelmingly, and it's not only in Minnesota, but it's overwhelmingly inside Minnesota's Somali community, particularly around Cedar Riverside neighborhood in Minneapolis, sometimes referred to as Little Mogadishu. No one is saying, I want to be clear here, no one is saying that all Somali immigrants are involved. We're not stupid here. We know that. That would be an insane thing to say. But according to Emer, and now federal investigators, roughly 90% of suspects in these cases come from within the same cluster of interlinked Somali-run nonprofits and businesses. 90%. That's insane. And here's where things go from criminal to geopolitical. What investigators found was that millions were being wired back to offshore accounts in Kenya, Dubai, and Somalia, with at least some of those funds ending up in regions controlled by Al-Shabaab, the Eastern African terrorist organization responsible for mass bombings and the deaths of hundreds of civilians. Folks, this is terror finance. I mean, look, we shouldn't be surprised. Joe Biden was giving the Taliban $45 million a week, which is still happening under the Trump administration. That is not Trump's fault. Trump is trying. They didn't do anything about this. Congressman Emer spells it out plainly here. He says, quote, the first thing you do is get rid of Waltz, Ellison, and Ilhan Omar. That's your structural problem, end quote. So let's break down what he means here. Waltz cannot win statewide without Somali vote. Minnesota has 87 counties. Tim Walz won 13. 87 counties, he won 13. Just 13. All that in the metro region. He lost 74 counties, including his own former congressional district, by 8 points. The only reason that he became governor is because Minneapolis, St. Paul, and the inner suburbs carry him over the finish line. And within Minneapolis, the Somali community is one of the largest, most organized, and most politically They just move in a block, man. They're all just in unison with one another in their voting blocks. They're unified. The other portion of this is Ellison is in the same boat, but his is even worse because Keith Ellison won his last election by less than 1 point. His margin of victory came almost entirely from the Somali American vote. Do you guys see the connections here? Do you see that maybe these people turned a blind eye for a reason? Do you think maybe they said, hey, don't worry about it because this is how they're winning? And then you got Ilhan Omar. I mean, her entire district is built on it, by the way. So is her entire political base. I mean, I don't even know why I'm breaking that one down. The key part here is when Ellison entered office as the Attorney General, he did something extraordinary. He rewrote internal policy so that no fraud investigations, especially those interfering with state welfare, the food programs, or immigrant-run nonprofits, could move forward without his personal approval. That's a little weird. And guess how many fraud investigations he approved? Just think of a number. Just think of a number. How many did Keith Ellison approve? Because it had to go through his approval regarding these state welfare, food programs, immigrant-run nonprofits. 0. None. Not one. Even as whistleblowers begged the dude for some sort of action, even as audits flagged suspicious transactions, even as federal agents warned state officials that millions of dollars were disappearing, he still didn't do anything. Do you see why that beginning part was kind of so important on this news story, to see how the Somali community is kind of linked to these three people? Now they just kind of like, oh, well, I didn't see that one. Oh, that's so convenient. And they're saying it's incompetence. No, it's not. No, it's not. Mm-mm. It was political protection is what that was. So why did they look the other way? This entire scandal makes sense once you kind of understand the math. And all you know, I'm a math guy. There are 60 to 80,000 Somali immigrants in Minnesota. And that is easily one of the largest concentrations in the entire United States. They overwhelmingly vote for Democrats, for Walz, for Ellison, and for Omar. And when an entire political faction relies on a single community for its margin of victory, what do? Well, you keep that community happy. You shield its leaders. You ignore those red flags. And you let certain nonprofits, in air quotes for those on audio, flourish, because shutting them down might anger those voters. Now, to be absolutely fair, and that's what we do here, we try to act fair. The vast majority of Somali immigrants are law-abiding people, okay? Who came to America for a better future. Got to be fair. But the political leadership of Minnesota, man, Walz, Ellison, Omar, has allowed and empowered a network of corrupt operators who create fake meal programs, filed fake invoices, created fake child care centers, claimed thousands of non-existent children, and used taxpayer dollars like a personal ATM. Why? Because exposing the fraud would have required confronting their own political ecosystem. And so what did they do? They refused to do it. This part, the feeding our future model and how the fraud actually happened. So I want to walk you through step by step by step, because sometimes it's a little vague, like, well, how the hell did they pull this off then? The first step was they needed to create or take over a nonprofit. So this kind of comes from a little bit of my accounting background. When you kind of look into these money launderers, there was a little bit of a stint of time that I worked in litigation when I had my available time at the firm. Doesn't mean I'm a perfectionist. Doesn't mean that I know everything. I want to be clear on that one. I know I just gave my available time to them because I enjoyed hanging out, and those people were really smart. So you had to create or take over a nonprofit. Usually it was a child care group or some youth program, or the big one was like a community outreach center. You take one of those bad boys over. And what you do is you enroll in federal programs that have loose oversight. This would be like the USDA child nutrition programs that we looked at before. And what those programs are for is they're designed for feeding low-income kids. And you're kind of starting to see how sadistic all this stuff is. Then you claim exponentially more meals than you're actually serving. There are some providers claiming that they were feeding 5,000 children per day in buildings that held only 50 people. This is some sadistic stuff, man. One site claimed that they fed more than existed in the entire zip code. I'm going to say that again. This is why you need auditing and accountability, because it's not physically possible. One site that did all this stuff that I'm talking about claimed that they fed more children than the entire zip code even had. And then you launder the money. Funds were funneled through fake vendors, shell LLCs, and overseas money transfers. They wired it out. I mean, millions of dollars ended up abroad. Some of it, according to federal investigators in regions, again, that were controlled by terrorist organizations, Al-Shabaab. This is why the DOJ under Trump has now launched a terrorism finance investigation, a fraud task force, and a broader probe into Ellison and Waltz's inaction. Because it went far beyond local corruption, man. This sucker went worldwide. So the DOJ is looking into all this. And there's a lot of questions that need to be had here. But we'll see if we get answers. Some of the questions are, why did Ellison block fraud investigations for years? Why did Walt's administration ignore whistleblowers as early as 2018? Did political pressure from Omar's network influence oversight decisions? Why were hundreds of millions flowing to nonprofits with no demonstrated capacity? Why was money being wired overseas without state regulators raising alarms? Did anyone knowingly allow funds to end up in terrorist-controlled territories? Some good questions. Now we want answers. Now we know the answers to some of them because we can connect the pieces ourselves without hearing from the horse's mouth. We know why. Power. That's all. It's all about power. Power, ideology, philosophy. That's why they did it. That's why they looked away. That's why there's zero investigations. That's why they didn't want to look under the hood. Nothing to see here, folks. Look the other way. And they'll gaslight the hell out of all of you. That's what they'll do. Will anybody go to jail? Probably not. That's how things work nowadays, folks. You would go to jail. You're all independents, conservatives, Republicans. I doubt there's any Democrats in here, but there might be. No, yeah, you don't go to jail unless you're Republican, or if you're anything other than a Democrat or anything on the left-hand side of the aisle, you're going to jail. Yeah. Them, no. No, there's a two-tier justice system that we live in, folks. You know how it works. We're used to it. Yeah, this is nothing new to us. Well, we'll be back here later today at 4 p.m. Pacific Standard Time for Dark MAGA. You got to be a member of Rumble Premium in order to get that content. We go over long-form video, short-term video, break down any Supreme Court cases, anything really. And it's really fun. There's a tight-knit group that's in there in the chat. We do get the same amount of views, or if not more views, oddly enough, on Rumble restricted content than we do on our normal podcast. So clearly I'm doing something different over at Dark MAGA that's getting all those views. Appreciate all the love and kindness you guys support. Thank you to everybody that donates their money to the show. We also have a donation tab at baldbrad.com if you want to make a little Christmas donation. That never hurts. I always appreciate the donations. And just so you know, again, all your donations go back into funding the show. We got a new lens finally. That took a while to raise money for, but always appreciate you guys. We do have money from Danielle and others for a new headset. Don't worry, we will get one of those as well. But we're setting money aside to make sure that we can upgrade a few things that we've been using for years and years and years. And when you use them every single morning, sometimes multiple times a day, they go out after a while. And that's the way technology works. Always appreciate you guys tossing in your donations. Like I said, if you want to make one, don't feel like you have to. The donation tab is up at baldbrad.com. We get 97% of your proceeds. It does not go to me. It goes back into the show. And always appreciate your guys' kindness for that. Take care of each other. Well, appreciate all of you. God bless. Take care.